Hello, welcome to our first video in our new history series. In this video series on history, we are currently going to be looking at and studying the test for the United States Citizen and Immigration Service oral exam. This this video series will go through the 100 different questions that could potentially be asked of you when you are taking this exam. So while this video series will be geared specifically towards residents that are in the process of studying to become a citizen, this series will still have a lot of very good information for those that are just want a little refresher or are just interested in history in general. Alright, so in this first video, we are going to look at the principles of American democracy. So to begin with, let's take a look at the Constitution. The Constitution was a document that was written in 1787 and was ratified by the Constitutional Convention to become law in 1788. This was a document that was written 12 years after the Declaration of Independence. And even today, in modern times, is still very relevant. It is so important, in fact, that the Constitution is considered the supreme law of the land. Now, a quick tip and advice for all of my students that are studying for the oral exam: all the all the answers to the questions that you will be asked, I have made it real easy for you. They will be everything in bold that is in our PowerPoint presentation. So again, even today in modern times, the supreme law of the land is the Constitution. So when the Constitution was written, it did do a few things. Three things, in fact. One, it sets up the government. Two, it defines the government. And three, it protects the basic rights of Americans. And you do need to know all three of these reasons and purpose of the Constitution because you can be asked on them. So, one interesting thing to note on the Constitution is when it comes to the very ideal of self government, you can actually find this ideal in the very first three words of the Constitution itself. And these words are "we the people." So the ideal of self government is seen in the three words "we the people." Now, since we have an idea what the Constitution is, let's take a closer look at it. The Constitution has several amendments to it, but the first thing we want to look at is what is an amendment, and this will be something you also do need to know. And so for your oral exam, you need to know that an amendment is either a change or an addition to the Constitution. It could be one or another. So amendment can change a prior amendment, or it could be an add-on. It can be an addition to the Constitution in the form of a new amendment. And so for right now, the current Constitution of the United States has 27 amendments to it. Within these 27 amendments, some have been changed some of them have been changed previously, others have had stuff added to, which again goes back to that's what an amendment does, and that's why we now have 27 today. The Constitution is what's known and can be called a living document, meaning that being a living document, the Constitution can continually be changed and have stuff added to, have stuff taken out. However, it is a very difficult process to have that happen, and we'll look at the different branches of the government that can do that in our next video. Now that we know there are 27 amendments, we want to take a closer look at some. So we started with the Constitution. We saw it within that Constitution, there's 27 amendments, and now we want to look at the first 10 amendments. These first 10 amendments have their own name, so they are kind of special, and they're called the Bill of Rights. And if you look on the right side of the screen, you can see a picture of the Bill of Rights, which will cover the first 10 amendments. So you have to remember that these first 10 are special because they would define a lot of the rights that we have as Americans. Now, out of these 10, the Bill of Rights, let's take an even deeper and closer look. And let's look at the First Amendment. And the First Amendment is a very important amendment because there are going to be several questions on the oral exam that you could potentially be asked on this First Amendment. So the First Amendment itself gives you 5 rights that every citizen has, that they are protected rights and that the government cannot infringe on them. When becoming an American citizen, you should know all 5 of these rights. However, on your quiz, that one of the questions that you will be asked is, what is one of these rights? However, you need to really know all 5 because they're yours. And as an American citizen, they are your rights. And let's take a look at them. So on your screen in front of you, you see that we have the 5 rights listed, and they are the freedom of religion, the freedom of speech, the freedom of press, freedom of assembly, and the freedom to petition the government. These are your 5 basic rights as an American citizen. And now we're going to take a closer look at what each one of these means a little bit more in detail. So, out of all 5 of these rights, if there was only one that you do remember for your test, make it the first one, the freedom of religion, because this will cover a couple of different questions on your oral exam, because there will be questions later asking specifically what is the freedom of religion. So if you remember that it's your first one of the First Amendment rights, it's going to help you cover a couple of different questions. So freedom of religion is the government can't tell you what to believe or you can practice. So what this means is you can practice any religion you want or you can practice no religion. And the government can't infringe on that. They can't tell you, no, you have to follow one certain religion. That's the freedom of religion here in America is it's your choice. The second freedom on the list that we want to look at is freedom of speech, and this is a very big one. So, the freedom of speech is the free and public expression of opinions without censorship, interference, or restraint by the government. So, what this means is you are free to say or express your thoughts or opinions without the government stepping in. However, though, do take into account and in mind there are limits to this, such as promotion of illegal acts, speech that could cause bodily harm to another, or other types of slander or defamation that could be hurtful to another person. Um, there are others, but these are just a few of the ones that could get you in a lot of trouble if you do. Freedom of speech won't cover these. Now, let me give you an example so you can kind of get a visual in your mind. So, you go to a crowded movie theater to watch the latest movie that's out. You decide to play a prank on the other moviegoers and yell, "Bomb," A stampede happens because of that as people try to run out of the theater, and a child gets injured with some broken bones from being trampled by the stampede. The police respond and confirm that no threat was found. You, however, are not only arrested for the event that happened, but you are now open to lawsuits for that injured child. So, what this means is yes, you have the freedom to state something without censorship. However, like in this example, your freedom of speech is now limited due to not only illegal threats of bodily harm that was done, it's it's just not good. So, yes, you have the freedom to say whatever without censorship, but there's a certain line that you cannot cross. And freedom of speech can extend into the realm of social media and even YouTube, which actually kind of leads us into our next of the five freedoms of the First Amendment, which is the freedom of the press. So, the freedom of the press is very similar to freedom of speech. It gives the individuals the right to express themselves through publication and dissemination of information, ideas, and opinions without interference, constraint, or persecution by the government. So, basically, this is the written side of freedom of speech, but with the same limitations. And with freedom of the press, especially in today and modern times, with social media, with Facebook, you got to be really careful with what you write, because once it's out there, especially on those type of platforms, it's out there for the world to see. And like freedom of speech, there are lines that cannot be crossed, that can get you in a lot of trouble. So you just got to be very mindful and very careful of not only what you're saying, but what you're writing. So now we're going to move on to the next freedom of the First Amendment, and that one is actually called freedom of assembly. So what this means is the individual right of the people to come together and collectively express, promote, pursue, and defend their collective or shared ideals. So basically, here in America, the government can't say that you can't meet with like minded people to share ideas. There's no restraint or censorship on that. One of the great examples that we can use, especially now in this time in the United States, is coming up this summer, is the national conventions for both the Democrats and the Republicans to nominate their party's nomination for president. That's freedom of assembly. Those the like-minded people are meeting together to pursue and defend their collective ideals by nominating these individuals to run for the presidency. Another example of this that's not so much in the political realm, but it can still be political, is if you're working at a company and that company has a union and you go to a union meeting, that's also a freedom of assembly, because like-minded people meeting together, it can't be censored. Now, finally, the last right you have under the First Amendment is freedom to petition the government. And this includes the right to communicate with government officials, lobbying government officials, and petitioning the courts by filing lawsuits with the legal basis. So, what this basically means is you have the ability to petition if you don't like something in your city, in your state, and even the federal government. If you can make a petition to try to change it. If you're not happy with an elected official that's in a like a mayor or a governorship, you can meet with like-minded people, like we talked about in freedom of assembly. You can get a petition going, you can get signatures, you can communicate with the government officials. You have a lot to say here in America as an American citizen. Another thing that could be done is something called lobbying, and that is one of your rights. And it again goes, getting signatures to try to get laws changed that you may not like, you may not agree with. Just a couple of topics: gun laws, environmental laws, any laws that you're motivated about and passionate about. You can always lobby or join a lobbying group, and that's all falls under your freedom to petition the government. So now let us move on, and that we have now have kind of a basic idea and introduction to the Constitution of the United States. We've also surprisingly covered the first seven out of the 100 questions that could be asked of you. So before we move on, let's do a quick review. Let's get these let get these questions, start sticking them in your mind, start thinking about them, and this way you'll be prepared when you go and have your exam. All right, so on the left hand side of the screen right here, you're going to see the question, and I'll give you about 5-6 seconds to think of the answer, and please try to answer it before I bring the answer up on the screen. Try start thinking about this way you're prepared. You're more comfortable when you go into your exam. It won't be as stressful and as nerve wracking. Okay. And if you get the answer wrong, it's okay. This is the first time we're going through it. You can always rewatch this video. I will continually be putting this information out. We'll be talking about this information. We'll be going over it. This is only the first time you've seen it. By the end of this series, well, I'm going to make sure you're comfortable, you're prepared to go into that exam with confidence to pass it, okay? So, again, I will read the question. I'll give you about 5-6 seconds and I'll put the answer up, okay? So, question one is, what is the supreme law of the land? All right? So the supreme law of the land, remember, it's the Constitution. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Question number two, what does the Constitution do? All right, so think about this. Remember, it does three things. All right, so those three things: it sets up the government, it defines the government, and it protects the basic rights of Americans. All right, let's go on. Question number three, the idea of self government is in the first three words of the Constitution. What are they? What are those three words, my friends? Those three words are we the people. The idea of self government is in the three words we the people. Alright? Remember, you have a say in your government. Next question is, what is an amendment? What is an amendment? An amendment is a change or addition to the Constitution. Next question, what do we call the first 10 amendments of the Constitution? All right, remember these first 10 amendments, they have a special name. What is it? That name of the first 10 amendments is the Bill of Rights. All right, it's called the Bill of Rights. Remember, it's those rights that you have as an American citizen. Next question is, what is one right or freedom of the First Amendment? Remember, we talked about this. There's 5 of them. What's one of them? The 5 rights of the First Amendment are religion, speech, press, assembly, and petitioning the government. And remember, out of all of those rights, the ones that you should remember is the freedom of religion. Remember that one, if none of the others. Last question for review on this section is, how many amendments does the Constitution have? Remember, I gave you a number earlier. Any numbers or dates I give you, try to remember them, okay? They're important. The Constitution currently has 27 amendments. All right, so how'd you guys do? I hope you guys did good. If you didn't, it's okay. Remember, this is the first time we're going over this material. You can always rewind, watch the first section again, but by the end of this, we'll make sure you have it, okay? Now we're going to be moving on to the next section in this video. And that section is going to cover another important document in American history. It's called the Declaration of Independence. So I'm not going to go into too much history around this time period right now. We were going to be covering this more when we get to the history section later, but I am going to touch on some of it now for the next few questions. But do start trying to memorize these dates and names of people that I'm putting out, okay? It's going to be important. So in the 1700s, that time period was known as the colonial period in America. The reasoning for this was until the year 1776, the inhabitants of what we now know as the East Coast, those were considered colonies which were under the control of the King of Great Britain. In an upcoming video, we will be looking at the reasons as to why people came to America and colonized it. We'll look at the different groups who lived here before the settlers, but that's going to be in the next video. What we need to look at now, though, is the Declaration of Independence was written in June and the very beginning of July in the year 1776 by a man named Thomas Jefferson. My advice would be remember those two. And Thomas Jefferson wrote this document, and it was adopted by the Second Continental Congress on July 4th, 1776, before it was sent to the King of England. What this document did was it announced the independence of the colonies from Great Britain. All right, so the Declaration of Independence, it announced or declared the independence of the colonies to Great Britain. Now, on your test you're going to take, it has it worded in a couple different ways, such as announced our independence, declared our independence. But it's as long as it's one of those, it's declared independence from Great Britain, you'll be good. All right. So now in the Declaration of Independence itself, there are actually several rights in there, and three specific ones that we're going to look at. For your test, you need to know two of these, but as an American citizen, you should know all three because there are three rights that you have, okay? They are the rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. All right? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Know all three. Now, one of the last things we want to look at in this video for today is the economic systems in America. On the oral civic test you'll be taking, there are two types of economic systems in America that you will need to know about. All right, the first is called a capitalistic economy, while the second is called a market economy. Let's now look at the definitions of each one, and we will look at them in relation to the American economy as a whole. So, for a capitalist economy, what that is it's private ownership of the means of production. So, any production that is done is owned by private companies, it's not owned by the government. Now, over in market economy, it is an economical system in which prices are based on competition of private businesses and again, not controlled by the government. So both of these have to do with private ownership, private businesses. So what does this mean for the United States economy as a whole? Well, America is what is called a mixed economy. All right. Now, what a mixed economy is, or a mixed system, it protects some private property and still allows a level of economic freedom in the use of capital. However, the government also intervenes in the economic activities for the public good and to achieve social aims. An example of government control are restrictions and licensing requirement in areas such as education, hospital care, roads, and postal deliveries. They also can intervene through what is known as the Federal Reserve by adjusting costs to borrow money. Now, on the private side, it means you can own and operate a business as long as you pay your taxes. The government doesn't come in and tell you how to allocate your funds, how to do production, how to run your business. So it gives both sides of it. So you can own and have private ownership, and because of that private ownership, the prices they can be competitive prices. If you have a couple companies putting out the same product, they can compete for your business by adjusting the prices, and to an extent that is allowed in our economy. Now, these definitions that we looked at right here, they're very simple definitions of the economy. You can take economy classes, lectures. You can get a degree in economy if you wanted to. There's just so much to know on it and understand. But for your oral exam, just remember capitalistic and market economy. Those are the two that you need to know for the US economy, okay? Now, with our time wrapping up today, we need to look at one more thing. And we need to look at something that is called the rule of law. So, what is it? The rule of law is a political ideal that all citizens and institutions within a country, in this case, the United States, state, whatever state you live in, and your community, all of them are accountable to the same laws. This political ideal, however, it's not a new ideal, nor was it created when America was created. It's been around since ancient times, since the ancient Greeks and Roman philosophers. So it's an ideal that's been around for a bit. But what does this mean for you? Well, there are four phrases that you need to memorize, and I'm going to have them up on the screen right now, okay? Simple phrases. Everyone must follow the law. Leaders must obey the law. Government must obey the law. No one is above the law. So everybody's got to follow the law. There's no exceptions, whether it's the mayor of your city, the governor of your state, even the president of the United States. No one is above the law. Everybody has to follow the laws. All right? So now that we have looked at the Declaration of Independence, the economy, and the rule of law, as well as the Constitution, we have five more questions that we need to look at and review to make sure you're doing good. All right. So, same as before, question will be on the left hand side. I'll give you about 5 seconds or so. Then you can try and get the answer. Then I'll put the answer up on the screen. All right. Do your best. I have faith in you. So, question one, what did the Declaration of Independence do? All right. What did that document do? It announced or declared our independence from Great Britain. Question two, what are two rights in the Declaration of Independence? Remember, there are three of them. You should know all three. What are two of them? They are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Know all three. Make your life easier. Question number three. Again, remember what I said about that freedom of religion. What is freedom of religion? Freedom of religion is you can practice any religion or none at all. Alright, remember back when we were talking about the First Amendment? If you if there's only one of those that you know, no freedom of religion, because you have questions on that one. Question number 4. What is the economic system in the United States? The economic system is capitalist economy and market economy. Capitalist and market. All right, finally, what is the rule of law? What is it? The rule of law is everyone must follow the law. Leaders must obey the law. Government must obey the law. No one is above the law. All right, so there you go. There's the other 5 questions. So, congratulations. We just went through the first 12 questions in this first video. How'd you guys do? I hope you guys did okay. If not, it's all good. You can always rewatch this video, go back, practice and study, and we'll keep on going, okay? We'll keep reviewing. So, congratulations. We have finished the first lecture on Principles of American Democracy. As I mentioned, if you need to rewatch this video, practice these questions, keep going for it. We're going to keep on reviewing. Otherwise, we got the first 12 out of 100 questions done. Good job. I'll see you next time.